To CryptosRUs. I am George. So today I want to talk about the $600 stimulus check and why you should put that into Bitcoin. I know the story is we should be receiving it. Some people have received it yesterday, supposedly. The rest of us, if we qualify, we're supposed to get it either today or tomorrow or later this week. But today I'm going to make a compelling argument why you should put that, if you could afford to, all into Bitcoin. And I'm going to show you why it's a good idea. So thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, I have these streams 11 a.m. Central Standard Time every single weekday, and I do have these streams sometimes at night. I had one last night for those of you guys that joined in. We had a good old time with some drinks and we discussed Bitcoin. So make sure you guys follow me, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and also follow me on Twitter and Facebook so you don't miss out on any of my segments or my live streams in the future. All right, let's dive right in. Let's talk about the $600 stimulus check and why you should put that into Bitcoin. All right, so let me make sure I switch my screen here so I don't mess up. But real quick, Bitcoin is at $28,238. So not too shabby, not too shabby. It did hit a high yesterday. It went all the way up to about 28.6, and I do believe it's on track to hit that again and break through. And I'm going to talk more about Bitcoin and the charts at the end of the stream, so make sure you stay for that. But I do want to start out with this. The $600 stimulus check, of course. A lot of people are waiting for that number to be bumped up to $2,000, but that has to wait. Right now, the $600 is already approved. It's being sent out to millions of Americans that qualify for it. And then later on, they're go talk about if they're going to bump that up to $2,000, at least within the Senate, because that vote was declined. So what should you do with that $600? Of course, if you need to use it to pay bills, you're facing some hardship, of course, then you need to take care of your business. You need to use it. But for those of you guys that do qualify and you don't actually need it, you may be wondering, should I just put it in my savings account, my checking account? Should I go buy a PS5? Should I put into Bitcoin or put into stocks or put into gold or whatever? Here's why I think you should put it into Bitcoin. And this is not financial advice, by the way, but I'm going to make a compelling reason why you should do so. So the first time around, the one that was, given out a few months ago, the $1,200, if you put that entire amount into Bitcoin, okay, what is it worth today? Well, that $1,200 is now worth $5,017, an increase of 318%. And that number only rises from here on out. As Bitcoin goes up and up and up, this number gets higher and higher and higher and higher. So the bigger reason why you want to put that $600 into Bitcoin is because it actually appreciates. It goes up in value. And while the dollar is actually devaluing itself, while the dollar is inflating, Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is going the opposite route. So that is why the $600, if you put into Bitcoin, even though it's a small amount, you're getting a fractional amount of Bitcoin, you know what? It's going to go up in value, and it could go very, very, very fast. It hasn't been that long. It hasn't been that long since we've gotten that $1,200 stimulus check, right? Just a few months. So imagine that. Imagine the $600 could definitely turn into $1,200, turn into $2,400, turn to $5,000, possibly in the near future, right? So that is number one, right? Because Bitcoin is appreciating, and the dollar is not. The dollar is depreciating. And take a look, if you don't believe me, take a look at this headline from The Guardian. Bitcoin hits record high as US dollar slides. Yes. And look at this. The US dollar drops to multi-year lows against major peers. So the US dollar is actually decreasing. According to this, against others like the euro and stuff like that. But overall, what's happening is because you have so much money being printed, of course, it's going to deflate everything else, right? If you only had $100 circulating and now tomorrow there's $200 circulating, well, then the buying power, the dollar worth, has gone down in half. And that's what's happening. With trillions and trillions and trillions being printed out, it's deflating everything. It's devaluing everything, right? But not Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is deflationary. And also, it does have a set supply, and it just gets rarer and rarer as demand goes up, right? So I think this is the biggest reason why. The biggest reason why you want to put that $600 or whatever amount you want into Bitcoin, because you're hedging. You're hedging against the devaluation of the dollar. You're hedging against inflation is basically what's happening, right? And plus, while you're doing that, you go make a good amount of money doing so. And I haven't shown this for a while. I think it's kind of interesting. You know, you might be thinking, wow, $600 in Bitcoin, that's really nothing, right? So this proves otherwise. So before, I used to show the Bitcoin rich list quite a bit. So I was trying to think, okay, how can I prove my point even more by putting that $600 in? So I calculated the number of addresses total on this list is about 33 million, a little bit more, so roughly 33 million addresses. This is the known addresses. This does not include cold wallets and stuff like that, but this is all the addresses like that ever received a transaction, that has interacted with an exchange, and so forth. So this is most of it. 33 million addresses. You got to figure that most people that's in the game has at least two. I know myself, I have probably close to 10. And I think most of you guys would agree, you probably have at least 2, 3, 4, 5 addresses. But let's just be conservative. Let's just say most people have at least 2. So out of the 33 million addresses, there's only about 16 million people that actually hold Bitcoin, right? So if you think about that, 16 million people out of 8 billion, that is a very, very small amount, right? Very, very small amount. So this is interesting. Look at this. Addresses richer than. So if you have $100 worth of Bitcoin, there's only 12 million addresses richer than $100. So if you divide that in half, there's only about 6 million people on Earth that owns more than $100 worth of Bitcoin. Think about it. Only 6 million. 6 million out of 8 billion has more than $100 worth of Bitcoin. Now, if you go up to 1,000, that decreases substantially. So if you had $1,000 in Bitcoin, only about 2.5 million people have more than $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. So as you can see, if you put in $600, you're somewhere in between this number, right? You're already like the upper 1 percentile in terms of the number of people that hold Bitcoin on this planet, right? Of course, if you go up, you put in 1,000, you put in 10,000, the number of people richer than you in Bitcoins goes down substantially. It goes down really, 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 really fast, right? And keep in mind, a lot of these addresses above 10 million that you see here is exchange addresses. So they're not actual people holding that much. Mostly it's exchanges holding for most people. So as you can see, even by putting $600 in, you're becoming one of the top elites, the 1%ers in terms of holding Bitcoin. So that actually means a lot. That means a lot because as Bitcoin's value goes up, right, as demand continues to surge, as institutional FOMO continue to come in and retail FOMO come in, and everyone wants a piece of the pie, and this number starts increasing dramatically, the number of addresses start ballooning up, right, and everyone wants a piece of the pie, you're guaranteed to be in the top 1% already, right, just by having $600 in there. So it's an interesting way to think about it, right? So even that small amount puts you into the upper 1 percentile for a number of people that hold Bitcoin. So that's a lot. That's a lot. And then, of course, if you put more, let's go move you in higher, 0.1%, 0.01%, right? So interesting way of thinking about that. Now, I also want to show you something that relates to why Bitcoin keeps going up and up and up. Why is another good reason why you should put that $600 into Bitcoin is this. Liquidity crisis. BTC is becoming harder and harder and harder to buy in exchanges. I think this is not a surprise, but it's good to look at data, right? So if you look at this, I'm going to just bring this up. This basically shows you much better way. Highly liquid supply, illiquid supply. Okay, so liquid and highly, I don't know what the difference between liquid and highly liquid supply. But the main point is, take a look. They have both been going down and down and down and down. Illiquid supply, meaning that just Bitcoin that exists that's outside the exchanges, right? The ones that people are holding on their wallets and they're just not touching, that supply keeps going up and up and up and up. While the liquid supply, the number of Bitcoins that's being exchanged and traded on exchanges, keeps going down and down and down and down and down, right? So what does that equal? Well, you could see this black line, very faint line, right? It equals the price going up because basically there's just not enough to go around, right? This also equates to what I was just saying with this. There's just not that much. There's not that much Bitcoin holders out there, and there's not that much Bitcoins out there. So as FOMO goes up, everyone wants a piece of the pie. But the illiquid supply keeps increasing, meaning they're all fighting for such a small amount. As more and more institutions and people come in, they're trying to grab the little amount that exists compared to the number that doesn't exist and the ones that's being held out there, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means this price is going to go up. It's going to go to the moon, what I call a moonshot trajectory, right? That is what's happening right now. This is not going to stop. You know, once this train or this avalanche, you know, started, it's not stopping, right? So hopefully this also explains why you should put that money, that $600 into Bitcoin, because it's an avalanche. It's an avalanche going downhill. I don't know. No, snowball going downhill. That makes a lot more sense. That's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what's getting bigger is the price, and what's getting bigger is the FOMO. All right. And then one other thing I want to show you guys that's kind of interesting, because Bitcoin, of course, has been going up and up and up and up, right? And I've showed you guys this list before, but I just want to give you guys a subtle reminder that Warren Buffett not too long ago called Bitcoin rat poison, and I'm not the only one that remembers that. So Chris, who wrote on Yahoo Finance, also said that. But look at the irony. Now Bitcoin is closing in on Berkshire Hathaway. So if you look at the overall market cap, we're really neck and neck, right? Berkshire Hathaway is worth $540 billion. Bitcoin is now worth $523 billion. There's only a $17 billion difference, and that could be made up by the end of today, right? So take that, Warren Buffett. Take that for you for calling Bitcoin rat poison squared. Not even rat poison squared. I still don't know what that means, but kind of shows you how Bitcoin is not going away. Doesn't matter who calls it what. It doesn't matter if it's been called rat poison square or the next tulip, you know, craze or it's a Ponzi or whatever. You know, people that get it, right? And more people and companies and institutions are getting it, which is why FOMO is increasing, which is why the price keeps going up, which is why we're above $20,000. And none of this is driven by retail investors. This is all driven by institutional investors right now. So wait until retail investors, average Joes, try to FOMO in, right? So this all relates. Yeah, it's going to drive things much, much higher. So hopefully this little segment convince you guys that if you do qualify and you do get $600 and you don't actually need it for emergency use, and you don't know what to do with it, if you're debating whether or not you should go buy a PS5 or Xbox X or buy a new phone or something that only depreciates over time, yeah, you should consider putting that money into Bitcoin instead, and then watch it grow like the last one, which has gone up 300% within the last few months alone. All right. So that's what I want to say. I do have a sponsor today. So let me talk about the sponsor real quick, and then let me dive into Bitcoin and Q&A. So the sponsor today is interesting. Smart MFG. And this is actually a spinoff of a company that I covered before in 2017 called SyncFab. So they kind of spun off their a separate company to just handle business for the token, MFG token. And they're basically trying to decentralize manufacturing supply and also incentivize the whole supply chain process to make it even better. So if you go down, first of all, the MFG can be on Kyber, Uniswap, Bancor, so all the decentralized exchanges. So this is what, in a nutshell, what it is. So you have two sides. You have manufacturers, right? And you have suppliers. And then you want to get data from basically everyone, right? The more data you have, the better it is. So you could actually reward suppliers for supplying data. So that's really nice, right? Obviously, the more data you have in terms of like their inventory, their lead time, all that stuff is great. And then, of course, you can incentivize them for giving you that data. So that's on the one side. On the other side, the manufacturing side, right? You could obviously do a lot with it. You could do invoices, quotes. You can incentivize them to produce things faster. There's a whole lot of things with it. And what Smart MFG is trying to do is trying to come out with DeFi for manufacturing. So not in the way you think of. It's a different way to think about it, but I'll show you what they're trying to do here. So you can see supply chain DeFi, supply chain tokenization, all this good stuff, right? But here, man, this is not the one. Use case. Here we go. So here are some of the incentives that could happen with MFG, like data sharing, quick responses, quality deliverables, customer loyalty, right? So the stuff that you would normally find outside of manufacturing, that's what they're trying to do with MFG with this token setup. And this is very complicated. And they're preparing for Ethereum 2.0 as well. Going down here, this is what I was looking for, the DeFi opportunities, right? So you might be thinking, well, how can you have DeFi with manufacturing, right? I know most people think of DeFi as like leverage and staking and, collateral and all that stuff, but no, you could do a lot with manufacturing. For example, if a supplier asks for earlier payment, let's say normally it's paid on the 30th, but they want it on the 15th, right? They could do that. But then, they get a discounted price, there's a whole process to it. So there are things you can ask for, and if you do get it or the other side gets it, you get incentivized for doing so, right? And same thing over here. Buyer pays on a data invoice, buyer accept invoice, supplier asks for early payment, supplier receive payment, right? And then so forth. So it's like a whole triangle setup here. That is what Smart MFG is trying to do. And their biggest partner, like I mentioned, is SyncFab, which is an existing company out of California. And they concentrate on manufacturing parts. So they have a whole supplier network. And basically anyone that is producing any kind of manufacturing parts, like you could see machinable metals, plastic, exotic metals, and they do a lot of CNC work. They are well integrated with MFG. So like I said at the beginning, MFG used to be just something that SyncFab was trying to push out, but now they have spun it out, right? So kind of interesting what they're trying to do with manufacturing and manufacturing DeFi, right? So if you're interested, check them out. Their URL is in the description of this video. All right, so next, let's go to the chart. $28,156. So still slowly and rising, right? I'm on a very small time frame, so 5 minutes. So it looks like this. But if you zoom out to like say 4 hours, it just keeps going up, right? So yesterday, I mentioned about how there's certain like resistances that Bitcoin has a hard time passing. So the biggest one was 19.5, and that's because the whales did not want to lose control. They kept selling, and they basically lost a lot of control, and they lost a lot of Bitcoins. But that took about 22 days. It took Bitcoin 22 days to surpass, right? And then 24.2, that was the next one, and it only took about 8 days. 8 days for Bitcoin to break above and go on. And just yesterday, I was talking about how this new one is 27.2. And if we break above and utilize it as a support, that would be fantastic. Guess what happened? That's what we did yesterday. That's exactly what we did yesterday. So, and that took only less than 3 days. 3 days. So you can see this whole thing is increasing at a ever increasing rate. I mean, in terms of breaking up and forming a new high. So you could see that, yeah, Bitcoin did go up, right, to 28.6, but then it broke down. But guess what? It utilized that 27.2 as a support, and now it's building upon that, which is really, really fantastic. And right now, it's in this slow ascending pattern, right? And it looks like a channel. Kind of looks like this whole thing over here. I bet you could draw a channel line that kind of goes with this. But, you know, let's just draw one. So for me, it looks like it's something like this going on right now, right? And then you have the upper channel, like something like this. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So right now, that's what it looks like. Bitcoin is slowly rising, right? It'll probably hit like about 28.4, 28.5, and maybe come back down a little bit and keep going. But overall, we know it's going much higher. It's going much higher. There's just not enough to go around. It's just very, very scarce. More institutions and companies are buying Bitcoin, and they're not telling you about it. They tell you after the fact. They don't want to tell you ahead of time because they want to keep things low. They don't want to drive FOMO. They want to grab as much as they can, and that's happening every single day. And finally, when these companies reveal, you know, it's already too late because they already have like $200 million worth of Bitcoin. They're not going to tell you ahead of time, and that is still ongoing right now. All right, so I'm going to turn back to you guys. Let's do some Q&A for a little bit. Jay, I'm glad we agree on something, but did you just call me a bozo in this chat? It's not a good way to stay in this chat. When could we expect a correction in BTC like sub 20K? Probably never. At this point, being at 28,000 already, I don't see us falling to 20K. It could happen. I've been known to be wrong many, many times, but at this level right now, man, for it to fall from where it is now all the way to 19.5 and utilize that as support to bounce off, as Bitcoin gets higher and higher, because that becomes less and less and less unlikely. So we may never see below 20K again, right? So just like we may never see even below some of these recent ones, like 24. You know, just right now, Bitcoin just keeps going up because it's so scarce. You know, the huge volatility days of before, where yeah, it goes up and it just drops down. It's different because right now the market is not controlled by the whales. The whales have lost their power in terms of controlling BTC. This basically made them lose their power. The institutions just bought up everything. So as institutions keep buying more and more and more, you know, the volatility decreases and it just keeps going up because it's so scarce. So in terms of crazy volatility, you know, people expecting a 30 or 40% doomsday drop, that may never happen. Of course, we could have 1,000, 2,000 point drops, but even a 2,000 point drop, that's less than 10% now. As the number gets higher, as Bitcoin goes up and up and up, you know, these 1,000, 2,000 point swings mean nothing, right? It has to be a traumatic, like 5 to 10,000 point swing for it to even matter. But I don't know. Just don't see it. Just don't see it. Whoever sells flip, man. Whoever sells now will cry next month. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I've been saying this for a while now, but it's really hard to grasp, what Bitcoin has done within such a short amount of time. I was just thinking this morning for fun. Bitcoin drops 50% and goes down to 14,152, right? That would be considered by most a disaster if it fell down 50%. But I was thinking, okay, when was the last time we actually hit 14,000? Bitcoin surpassed 14,000. That was a previous, resistance too. But Bitcoin passed 14,000 November 5th. That was less than 2 months ago. That's about a 1.5 months. So within 1.5 months span, Bitcoin has doubled in less than 2 months. It just kind of shows you, how fast things have been moving. If Bitcoin fell down 50% tomorrow, we would only be set back 1.5 months. So think about that. If Bitcoin fell down to, let's say, 19.5, below 20,000, that would only set us back until December 16th. That was only 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Think about that. Things are just escalating at this point. The FOMO keeps building, the supply. Even though there's a set supply out there, 900 Bitcoins being produced per day, that is getting just rarer and rarer because there's just so much buying, right? In fact, I shouldn't say that. It is all gone already. It is all gone. It's not getting rarer. It is rare because just PayPal alone and Grayscale alone, they already buy multiples in terms of how much Bitcoin gets produced per day. So PayPal is buying more than 900 Bitcoins a day. Grayscale is buying way more than 900 per day from their clients. So all the new Bitcoins being produced is already gone. So right now, everyone's fighting for what exists out there. And that is the reason why also, according to, this chart right here, the illiquid supply keeps increasing and liquid supply keeps decreasing mostly because this is all being bought out. And that's why it's keep decreasing. And the number of holders, the ones that have it, they're not selling. So this will get lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And one day when there's just no Bitcoins to be sold, that's when Bitcoin's going to be at $1 million plus. I don't know if this hit you guys yet. I talked about the gravity of $30,000 per Bitcoin, and we're heading there. We could head there even later today as this keeps going up. I do anticipate we'll probably have a big jump pretty soon. It's just wild to think about 30,000 for Bitcoin. When not too long ago, we were still worried about 14,000. We're still worried about 10,000. And now we're seeing 30,000 around the corner. It's just the gravity of that is heavy. At least for me, it's really, really heavy. What's your price prediction of ETH when Bitcoin hits $100,000? Well, let's bring up CoinMarketCap. Look at BTC Dominance, 70%. Remember, I told you guys, I think this is going to go much higher. And we could see BTC Dominance getting to 80% as Bitcoin keeps going up and up and up. Because traditionally in the past, it has always been high. But looking at ETH, looking at Bitcoin less than 4x to get 100,000. Let's just say 4x, that would put Ethereum about 2,800. Can it happen? Can it move at the same pace of Bitcoin? Sure, it could happen, but I think it's less likely. So I think Ethereum will probably settle between 2,000 to 2,500. If Bitcoin is at $100,000, that's Just my guess right now. I mean, there are times where Ethereum can keep up. There are times where Ethereum can even surpass Bitcoin. But right now, it's not one of those times. That's why BTC Dominance keeps going up, because altcoins are really struggling to keep up. Tara says the USD lost 25% of its purchasing power last year. I think that's probably an understatement, especially if you compare it. I guess it depends on what you compare it to. People get confused on purchasing power, and I don't pretend to be like, a genius when it comes to this. But when you look at things that have gone up in price, for example, stocks have gone up in price. Bitcoin has gone up in price, right? Even food has gone up in price. So if you look at that, how much has it gone up by? Well, if you're looking at USD versus Bitcoin, Bitcoin has gone up over 300%. So you can make an argument that USD actually decreased by quite a bit. That inflation has hit USD, and buying power has decreased by 66% versus Bitcoin. So, and you look at real estate too. Real estate has been going up. And you wonder, is anyone really buying a house right now? Well, yeah, people are buying houses due to low interest rates. But also, houses are going up because if you compare that to USD, you can make an argument that the buying power of USD versus real estate has been decreasing, and more so than 25% too. So I guess it depends on what you compare it to. But there have been many things that have gone up tremendously in 2020 due to what the Treasury and everyone else has been doing, the federal banks, the central banks, and so forth. If it's not an altcoin, if it's not Bitcoin, it's altcoin. That's true, right? So one thing that people might get confused on as they FOMO in, they go to exchange and they see, oh, there's Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So I better buy Bitcoin Cash because it's cheaper. Well, they would be, of course, mistaken, and they're going to lose out on a lot of gains by doing that. I think psychologically, 28,000, 30,000 is a very large number. People don't want to buy a fractional piece, but the main thing is you want to look at percentages, not how many of one coin you have. You can have 1 million of something that's worthless, or you could have 0.1 of something that's very valuable, and you rather have that 0.1 than 1 million of something that's just not moving, right? So that's the thing. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Doesn't matter if any other coin has Bitcoin in the name, but Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Everything else is just an altcoin. Ivan says, I sold my one BTC at 9K waiting for a correction to buy in. I'm fairly confident in saying this, that we will not see BTC below 9K ever again. So keep waiting for that correction. Maybe we fall down 10, 20, maybe we fall down 30%, but we're not going to be falling down like 75% from these levels. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Monero, can you discuss Monero? Well, Monero is a privacy coin. It's used a lot on the dark web. But it's one of those things, I mean, once upon a time, it seems like it was uncrackable. Then someone did figure out how to crack it, and then they had to fix it. But Monero is dicey because governments are wary about transactions they can't track. So they're putting pressure on exchanges to delist privacy coins. So Monero is being delisted from a lot of exchanges, especially overseas, and I think that's only going to continue. So I'm very worried about privacy coins. If you're buying it because you don't want to be spied on, I get it. But if you're buying it to try to make money from, I think it's going to have a hard time, especially when all exchanges are delisting it. Other than BTC, what do you think is up next? Well, I appreciate the super chat, but I there's no right answer to that. I mean, everything will move up. Altcoins will move up. You know, even if it's not altcoin season, there's a lot of altcoins that's still moving up. But the thing is, can it outperform Bitcoin at this stage? And 99.99% of altcoins cannot. There are some that can for a short burst, maybe for a few weeks, maybe for a few months. But the further out you go, the less likely there's an altcoin that can surpass Bitcoin in performance. So why would you look at something else other than Bitcoin then if nothing can surpass its performance? So that's the thing. If you're trying to buy and you're waiting for altcoin season, well, look at when altcoin season really hit in 2017. It hit latter half, actually not the latter half, the latter quarter of 2017 moving into 2018 when Bitcoin topped out and when the money really flew out and went into altcoins, right? And plus 2017 was driven by ICOs too. So there was that going for it. Right now, there's no ICOs. There's no crazy ICOs going. For a short time, we had a lot of people getting into yield farming and stuff that kind of drove up a lot of these DeFi projects, but now that have died down too, right? So there's no ICOs. There's no insane FOMO pumps. So right now, what you have to do is wait until Bitcoin tops out, basically, for that money to come back into altcoins in a big way, in a big way. And that, I think that will likely happen towards this, latter half or the last quarter of 2021. But right now, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. Cody, I appreciate that. Waiting is boring, but things in crypto move pretty fast. No one asked about Elrod. Elrod is good. It's fine. Nothing wrong with the project. There seems to be a large following behind Elrond, but the biggest reason why I like Elrond is the founders invested in Binance. So they're part owners of Binance. So because of that, have a tight integration with Binance and BNB and Binance Chain. But outside of that, it is just another a protocol network. And, it's generation 3 is supposed to be able to scale better and all that stuff. But what it really comes down to adoption, right? There's a lot of protocol coins out there that promise a lot of big things. Like yesterday, people were super chatting me, asking me about Kusama, which is basically like almost identical to Polkadot. From my understanding, it's more fast moving. It's more for like a test bed for dApps. But there's a lot out there. It's just a matter of adoption. Which one? The one that'll win is the one that gets the most adoption, gets most apps, dApps, and gets the most usage, right? So I just got to wait and see which ones win. I am surprised with the performance Zilliqa. So I was looking at them. Nothing really explains. Sometimes things go up. They get pumped up a lot. There's a lot of FOMO, right? So projects go up a lot. But there's really nothing that really explains it. There might be a few things, but Zilliqa is one of those projects. Really surprised it has gone up that much that fast. But it's good to see that it is taking a breather. Zilliqa once upon a time was a great project. I shouldn't say was a great project. It's still a good project. Basically, Ethereum, they're moving to proof of stake, trying to implement sharding. Zilliqa already has that. Zilliqa is all about sharding and fast transactions, splitting up transactions. So they already have that done, basically. But I got off the bandwagon when the founders left, so I didn't like that. Why is Warren Buffett in this chat? Warren Buffett asks, we keep talking about BTC going up. How is taking care of all the infrastructure for mining? I don't see manpower there, and it could be bad for BTC. No currency is good if there's no infrastructure. Well, I don't get your question. There's a ton of mining farms everywhere. There's a huge infrastructure. And if you're talking about a network, there's miners around the world too. Not just farms, but anyone could buy ASIC miner and start facilitating and powering the network. Anyone could do that. But right now it's mostly about the farms. But the farms are everywhere. So the infrastructure is huge. I don't know what. Low roller, if you didn't get it yet, remember what I told you. And the more you use it, the more I'm not going to answer. All right, guys. That's pretty much it. Let me end it. Let's keep it nice and short. So today's topic is you should put your $600 stimulus check into Bitcoin. If you can afford to, first of all, if you don't need it, you don't need to pay bills and stuff like that. Obviously, if you're just getting a $600 bonus check and you don't know what to do with it, you should put it in Bitcoin because Bitcoin is going to appreciate. It's not going to inflate like the USD, right? It's going to go up over time. It's getting scarce. It's rare. And last time, had you put in your $1,200, you would have made over 300% already. So that's going to happen again this time around too. So if you're getting $600, you should put that into Bitcoin. And if we end up getting $2,000, you should put that in Bitcoin too. Because if you look at the Bitcoin rich list, there's not that many people that actually have over $100 in their wallets. There's probably about only 6 million people out there that has more than $100 of Bitcoin in their wallet. So you're already, just by putting that $600, you're already in the upper 1% of number of people on Earth that owns Bitcoin. So think about that. That's a pretty good place to be in. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, smash up the like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, hit that notification bell, and also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Check out my Teachable page if you want a crash course on Bitcoin, and also check out my Patreon page. All right. Until next time, take care, guys. Bye-bye.